Hello everyone, welcome to Math Decoded. Today I'm going to be solving 9709 May June 25 variant 1 2. So let's get started. Alright, the first question over here is about transformations. It asks you to transform f of x to g of x. And it says that describe fully a sequence of two transformations which transforms the graph of f of x to the graph of g of x. And you need to take care of the order as well. Now, in these type of questions, you need to be sure that there are only two transformations and not more than that. You cannot exceed this limit in this question. Now, first of all, visually, I can see that there is some sort of a vertical stretch involved in this question. Uh, so I can see that the height of this figure is 1, 2, 3 boxes, and the height of this figure is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 boxes. That probably means that if this is 3 boxes and this is 6 boxes, this was multiplied by 2 vertically because the vertical height has changed. So first of all, I can write down my first transformation, that is vertical stretch by a factor of 2. All right. Secondly, uh, whenever you have a vertical stretch by some factor, the y coordinates get multiplied by that factor. So I'm going to pick out a specific position. Let's say I pick out this position, 0, 6. And if I multiply it by a factor of 2, only the y coordinate is going to get multiplied. That's going to become 0, 12. So using this, I have applied my first transformation. Now you need to see that I need to bring this to this coordinate 0 comma minus 2. How am I going to bring 0 comma 12 to 0 comma minus 2? I'm probably going to have to add something to 12 to bring it to minus 2, and that's going to be negative 2, negative 12. That's going to be x is going to be negative 14. So I can simply write this down. I can see that this is a translation, and I can write this down as translation by 0 and negative 14. It's always better to write down translation in a vector form. It makes it much simpler and easier for you to write down as well. Instead of writing horizontally and vertically, you can simply write down one vector form, and that would represent everything. All right, moving on to question number 2. It says, find the coordinates of the points of intersection of the curve and the line with the equations. This is a very simple question. You just have to use some basic substitution. I'm going to use this equation first and make y the subject of the formula. That's going to be negative y is equal to negative 2x, negative 4. I'm going to plug this value of y over here and over here. That's going to be 2x minus negative 2x, negative 4 plus 5, negative 2x, negative 4 whole square is equal to 24. I'm just going to expand things from here. Actually, you can just expand it in this step. Negative 8x, negative 4x, negative 8x actually. Negative 8x, negative 4x squared plus 5. Now I'm going to expand this bracket first. That's going to become 16 plus 16x plus 4x squared is equal to 24. That's going to be negative 8x, negative 4x squared. I'm just going to multiply this bracket, plus 80 plus 80x plus 20x squared is equal to 24. That's going to become 16x squared plus 72x plus 56 is equal to 0. Now remember one thing, it is true that you can solve this equation directly by putting it into your calculator, but you cannot do that. You have to show the quadratic formula steps in your answer, otherwise you will not get the marks. So I'll say A is equal to 16, B is equal to 72, and C is equal to 56. Using the basic quadratic formula, I'll plug everything in. In case you're wondering, I've used this formula over here. Divided by 2 into A. and you know that this is supposed to be having two answers. The other one has a negative sign. Now this gives you the value of x as -1, and this gives you the value of x as -7/2. You can always check your answers from your calculator as well. Now what I'm going to do is I have two values of x and I have an equation y is equal to -2x, -4. I'm going to plug in these values of x into this equation and that will give me a value for y. So y over here is going to be -2 and over here it's going to be 3. So that gives me two coordinates, which is basically my answer. Alright, moving on to question number 3. This is a question about binomial expansion. Uh, Basically, it says the coefficient of x raised to power 7 in the expansion of this is 1280. Find the value of the constant p. Alright, pretty simple. First of all, I'm going to start by expanding this expression using binomial expansion. I know that the the power over here is 5. That's going to be 5c0. Then I'm going to have px square raised to power 5 plus 5c1 px square raised to power 4 and then 4 over p x raised to power 1. You need to make sure one thing over here that this and this must be adding to the total to the total power, that is 5. Um, Now the trick over here is that I'm just going to figure out the first two terms and then I'll see how the question flows. So this is going to leave me with p raised to power 5 x raised to power 10 plus 5 uh, p raised to power 4 x raised to power 8 and 4 over p raised to power into x. I can see that this p and this p cancels out, and that's going to leave me with p raised to power 5 x raised to power 10 plus 20 p raised to power 3 x raised to power 9. Now, here's the catch. I can see that um, over here the power of x is 10 and over here the power of x is 9. And this basically means that the subsequent terms are going the power of the subsequent x terms are going to decrease by 1. So the third term is going to have some coefficient and a power of x that is raised to 8. Then the fourth term is going to have some coefficient and a power of x that is raised to 7. And this is how I can figure out that the coefficient that I need is the coefficient of the fourth term. So if I start working that out, that's going to be 5c3 px square raised to power 2, 4 over 3 into x raised to power 3. As I said, 2 and 3 must be adding up to 5. This is going to leave me with 10 p square x raised to power 4, 64 over p cube into x cube. Now I can say this cancels out, this becomes 1, and that leaves us with 640 over p x raised to power 7. It said that the coefficient is 1280, so I can say that this is the coefficient. So 640 over p is equal to 1280. 1280p is equal to 640 and p is going to be equal to 1 by 2. I hope this makes sense. Alright guys, moving on to question number 4. It says a point P is moving along the curve in the equation with the equation this in such a way that the x coordinate of P is increasing at a constant rate of 5. In these type of questions, it's very important that you jot down the data as is being provided to you in the question. That will help you out a lot. So I can see that basically whenever it mentions rate, you're supposed to be dividing the quantity by time. That that basically means it's going to be dx by dt, and the value is going to be 5 because it states that in the question. By the way, it's positive 5 because it says that it's increasing. If it was decreasing, it would be negative 5. Anyways, the question then asks, find the rate at which the y coordinate of P is changing. All right. Again, it asks you about the rate of y coordinate. So what they're asking you for is actually dy by dt. This is what you basically need to find out. Now in this question type, you need to make an equation to figure out what do you already have and what you actually need to find. There's a very simple way to make an equation in this. Uh, you will draw two fractions. You will put this quantity over here, and you will put this quantity over here. And then you'll fill in the remaining spaces with the other quantity that is mentioned in this question, that is dx. And there you have it. This is your equation. Uh, I can see that dx by dt is already given to us, and dy by dx is something that you need to figure out. How will I really figure this out? Now, I can see that I have an equation in the question given to us in terms of y and x, so I can simply use this. Let me just rewrite it. That's going to be y is equal to a raised to power x raised to power 3 by 2 minus 12x. I need to differentiate this equation basically. That will be dy by dx is going to be equal to 3 over 2a x raised to power 1 by 2. The power is multiplied at the back and it is itself reduced by 1. And 12x is just going to become 12. All right. It says that x is equal to 9, so I'm just going to plug in x is equal to 9. And that is going to give us 9 over 2a minus 12. So now I have an expression for dy by dx as well. Therefore, I'm just going to use this and multiply it by dx by dt. That is 5. And that's going to become 45 over 2a minus 60. All right. Moving on to the next question, it says, given that the curve has a minimum point. Now, whenever a question mentions minimum point, it basically means dy by dx is equal to 0. Uh, Given that the curve has a minimum point when x is equal to 1 over 4, find the value of a. All right, my expression for dy by dx is over here. No, it actually it's over here. So dy by dx is equal to 3a x raised to power 1 over 2 minus 12. I'm going to put this equal to 0, and I'm also going to plug in x as 1 over 4, and that's going to basically become 3a 1 over 4 raised to power 1 over 2 is equal to 12, and a is therefore going to be 16. All right, moving on to question number 5 now. This question is a little tricky. Um, it says the equation of a curve is y is equal to 4 cos 2x plus 3. Find the greatest and the least possible values of y. All right, they've given you a domain as well. First of all, you need to understand that this format of an equation, y is equal to 4 cos 2x plus 3. This format basically represents a lot of things. This number over here represents the mean axis, and this number over here represents the amplitude. What does this mean? This basically means that if I have a graph like this, why is the line not straight? Okay. If I have a graph like this, and let's say it's a cos graph, so it basically, the mean axis is basically the axis where the graph is being cut into half. It basically means that this is your mean axis and this is at 3. This amplitude means that this distance over here, this distance is positive 4, and this distance over here is negative 4. So if I add 4 to 3, that's going to be 7. And if I subtract 4 from 3, that's going to be negative 1. What does this show us? This shows us that the greatest value is 7 and the least value is negative 1. So I'm just going to write it down over here. Greatest is 7 and the least is negative 1. I hope that makes sense. Okay, now moving on to part B, it says sketch the curve. Now in this question, it's very important that you first understand what a normal cos curve looks like. So y is equal to cos x graph, what it naturally looks like. It basically is supposed to be something like this. Something like this. And you need to understand the intersections. So first of all, it intersects at 90 degree, which is basically pi by 2. There is no intersection at pi, and then there is an intersection at um, 3 over 4 pi. And then over here at 2 pi, there is no intersection. Now, basically, what you need to understand over here is the fact that um, the equation that we are having has a different equation. Sorry, the question that we are having has a different equation. It says cos 2x, cos 2x, and the graph that I have drawn over here is for y is equal to cos x. Obviously, our question also has other complications like 4 cos 2x plus 3, but the main difference over here is this and this. Now, you need to understand one thing that whenever you have a 2 multiplied over here, it basically means that there is a horizontal stretch by the inverse of this number. So there is a horizontal stretch by a factor of 1 over 2. What does that mean? That means that you will draw a graph of the same shape, but the intersection points will be halved. So this will become pi by 4, and this will become pi by 2, and this will become pi. And similarly for this point as well, this will also be halved. This will basically be um, 3 over 8 pi. That's a little hard to plot, so you don't really need to pay attention to that, but you can easily plot the other ones. So first of all, let's begin by plotting. There will be an intersection at pi by 4. Let's say this is pi by 4. This is your pi, and this is your 2 pi. So let's begin with an intersection at pi by 4. There's going to be no intersection at pi by 2, and then there's going to be an intersection at this point, and then there's going to be no intersection at pi, which is basically this point. I'm just going to move this over here at this point. This is going to be one of your cos curves. And by the way, because the domain is till 2 pi, you're going to have to complete this graph till 2 pi. You can't leave it over here, otherwise you won't get the mark. Something like that. Now you need to understand that your question does not end over here because it also has some other complications. You have a 4 multiplied over here. This basically means that, as I discussed earlier, you are going to be having a mean axis at 3. The graph I've drawn right now has a mean axis at 0, which basically means I need to shift my graph upward. And I need to label the center of this graph as 3. And I need to label this as 7 and this lowest point as negative 1, just as we have written over here. I hope this graph makes sense to you. All right, moving on to the next question that says, hence determine the number of solutions of the equation 4 cos 2x plus 3 is equal to 2x minus 1 for the given domain. So you are basically going to be plotting this line on this graph and figuring out the number of solutions that it has. So y over here is equal to 2x minus 1. One of the simplest ways to do this is that you plot in points. So basically I can plug in 0. 0 is one of the safest points to be plugging in. -1, that's basically going to give me -1. So I have one coordinate on me, that's 0 comma -1. Next I can plug in pi -1. You can basically go to your radians mode inside your calculator, and over there you can figure out the solution of this. That's basically going to be 5.28. I have the second coordinate as well, that's pi comma 5.28. Now simply you need to plot these points. The first point is 0 comma -1. I'm going to plot this in a different color. 0 comma -1 over here. Actually I'll plot it with dots. And then we have pi and 5.28. Now I can say that 5.28 will be somewhere over uh, here maybe. So a very rough estimate, somewhere over here. And therefore you can see that this has three intersections. 1, 2, 3. Therefore you can say that this has three solutions. As simple as that. Alright, now moving on to question number 6. It reads, the diagram shows the curve with the equation this and the line this. The line and the curve intersect at the point P, and which has a y-coordinate of 3. Find the area of the region. Alright. This basically means that first of all you need to figure out the x-coordinate at this point and at this point, because they're asking you for the area of the shaded region. And you can see that this forms a triangle. And if you can figure out the area of this triangle, that will make it much easier for you. And for that I need to know these both of these coordinates. So in order to figure out these coordinates, first of all I'm going to put y equal to 3 and figure out the first coordinate. That is going to be 5x plus 4 under root is equal to 3. I'm going to square both sides. 5x plus 4 is equal to 9. 5x is going to be 5 and x is going to be 1. So I know that this is 1. In order to figure this out, I'm going to use the equation of the line and put y is equal to 0. And that's going to give me x as 2. So I know this is 2. Therefore, I can say that the base of the triangle is 1 unit and the height of the triangle is 3 units. Oh no, this is 3 units. Alright, now in order to figure out this part, I need to be integrating the equation of the curve and find the area underneath it by plugging in the appropriate limits. So let's do that. That's going to be the integral of 9 over 5x plus 4 raised to the power 1 over 2 plus the area of the triangle, that is base into the height. Base is 1, height is 3. This is supposed to be giving us our final answer. The limits over here are 1 and 0 because this area is enclosed by limits 1 and 0. Alright, so I'll move the bracket upwards. That becomes -1 over 2. Still has the integral plus 3 over 2. Now over here I can apply chain rule where I will increase the power by 1, that becomes 1 over 2, and I will divide it by the increased power, that is 1 over 2, and with the derivative of this inner bracket, which is 5. And there you have it. This is your integrated form, but do not forget to apply the limits, that is 1 and 0 plus 3 over 2. If I plug in 1 into this, that's going to become 9 over 1 over 2 into 5. Then I'll plug in 0, that will become 9 into 4, 1 over 2, 1 over 2, divided by 1 over 2 into 5, plus 3 over 2. This will end up being 18 over 5 plus 3 over 2 that is going to be 51 over 10, which is your final answer. I hope that makes sense. All right, now moving on to question number 7. This is about identity proving. First of all, you need to know that there are only two identities that you need to be aware of in AS, which is sine square theta plus cos square theta, that is equal to 1, and tan theta is equal to sine theta over cos theta. Now, in this particular question, by the way, in these questions, prove the identity, you are supposed to pick out only one side, either the right hand side or either the left hand side, and prove it equal to the other one. In my case, I'm going to be using the left hand side. So you're supposed to mention it over here. Tan theta plus 7 divided by tan square theta minus 3. Um, First of all, I can say that tan theta can be written as sine theta over cos theta plus 7. And you can also say that if I square this entire thing, that is also correct. So tan square theta will be equal to sine square theta over cos square theta minus 3. I hope that makes sense. Um, I'm just going to take the LCM in the denominator and in the numerator. So that's going to become sine theta plus 7 cos theta divided by cos theta divided by sine square theta minus 3 cos square theta divided by cos square theta. I can take the reciprocal, and this will become cos, so basically this fraction flips, cos square theta divided by sine square theta minus 3 cos square theta. Uh, this and this can cancel out. This becomes 1. And you will be left with sine theta plus 7 cos theta into cos theta divided by sine square theta minus 3 cos square theta. Now, you can write this down as sine theta cos theta. I'm multiplying the cos theta with the inner bracket plus 7 cos square theta divided by, now sine square theta can be written as 1 minus cos square theta. So that's going to become 1 minus cos square theta minus 3 cos square theta. I can further write this down as sine theta cos theta plus 7 cos square theta divided by 1 minus 4 cos square theta, which exactly is equal to the right hand side. You can even write it down over here to make it clear to the examiner. Alright, now moving on to part B, it says, hence solve the equation, exactly the left hand side, right hand side over here, that it is equal to 5 over tan theta for this domain. Please pay attention to this domain because it will determine your answers in this question. Now from the part above, I can say that this is equal to this. So I'll use this form. I'll say tan theta plus 7 over tan square theta minus 3 over tan square theta minus 3 is equal to 5 over tan theta. The reason I'm using the left hand side is because this is in terms of tan and this is also in terms of tan and not any other trigonometric identity. So I'll just multiply tan theta, cross multiplication. This becomes tan square theta plus 7 tan theta is equal to 5 tan square theta minus 15. That is going to become 4 tan square theta. I'm just moving things around and bringing them on one side. Minus 15 is equal to 0. Now, you can see that this resembles a quadratic equation. I can say that tan theta is equal to any variable, let's say m. So this will become 4m square minus 7m minus 15 is equal to 0. Now, you need to put this into your quadratic formula that I have mentioned earlier in this video. But I'm just gonna solve it quickly by putting this into my calculator. However, you need to show all the steps. You need to show all quadratic steps. Um, so if I do it using my calculator, that's gonna be m is equal to 3 and m is equal to negative 5 by 4. I'm gonna put tan theta equal to both of these numbers. Now, this is a very simple technique that I use in order to remember the quadrants. Add sugar to coffee. Um, First of all, remember one thing, whenever you are dealing with negative numbers in this scenario, you will not input this as a negative number into your calculator. You will input it as tan inverse of positive um, 5 by 4. If I do that, and also remember that your range is in degrees, therefore you will not use the radian mode on your calculator. You will use the degree mode. Anyways, so if I do tan inverse of 5 by 4, positive 5 by 4, that will leave you with 51.34. But remember, you need the quadrant where tan is negative. Tan is going to be negative in this quadrant. And remember, you can only go till here because your domain is limited to 180 degrees. Um, this is going to mean that you, in the second quadrant, which is the sine quadrant, you are going to subtract theta from 180. That is going to be 128.7 degrees. Always remember that your angles are supposed to be written to one decimal place. Similarly, for the other side, tan is over here. Tan is positive. Tan is going to be positive only in the first quadrant in this range. So tan inverse of 3 is going to be 71.6 degrees, one decimal place. You can even write it down over here. I hope that is clear to you. Right, now moving on to question number 8. It says the diagram shows a circle with points with the equation this and the line y is equal to negative 2. So this is y is equal to negative 2. The line intersects the circle at the points A, B, and C, and the center of the circle is C. Find the coordinates of each of A, and B, C. Alright, first of all, let's deal with the line. I can simply, because I can see that these are points of intersection, I can, sorry, my bad. These are the points of intersection. I can say that I can put input y is equal to negative 2 into this equation. That is going to be negative 2 whole square minus 14x plus 8 into negative 2 plus 36 is equal to 0. This leaves me with x squared minus 14x plus 24 is equal to 0. Again, a quadratic equation. You can do this by middle term breaking or by showing in the quadratic formula steps. I'm going to fast forward and use my calculator to do this. That's going to be x is equal to 12 and x is equal to 2. And therefore, I can say a is 12 comma negative 2 and b is 2 comma negative 2. All right. Now let's have a look at C. Now, in order to figure out the center of a circle, your equation should be in the standard form for a circle equation, which this is not. In order to do that, I'm going to do completing the square. So I'm just going to arrange the terms in the order that they should be. And in order to do completing the square, I am going to say x minus, you're going to put the half of this number and you're going to put the negative square of this number outside, just like that. Similarly for the y plus 4, 4 is the half of 8, and the negative square of 4, that's 16, plus 36 is equal to 0. This is going to leave us with x minus 7 whole square plus y plus 4 whole square is equal to 29. I've taken all the constant terms on the other side. And now you can say that the center is going to be 7 comma negative 4. I hope that makes sense. Moving on to the next part, it says find the angle ACB in radians. Give your answer correct with three significant figures. Angle ACB. Let's have a look which one is angle ACB. This is angle ACB. ACB. This one. All right. Now the thing is that you can figure out the gradient of CB and AC, and then you can use the angle between tangents formula, angle between two lines formula, to figure out this angle. So that's the approach we're going to use in this question. There are multiple approaches that you will see and mentioned in the mark scheme or elsewhere. But I find this to be the easiest, so I'm going to go with this approach. First of all, I'm going to figure out the gradient of AC. I'm going to do this working over here with the diagram so that it makes sense to you. M of AC. The coordinates of A are 12, comma negative 2. The coordinates of B are 2, comma negative 2. And the coordinates of C are 7, comma negative 4. If I figure out the M of AC, that's going to be negative 4, negative 2 divided by 7 minus 12. That is going to give us negative 2 over 5. M of CB is going to be negative 4, negative 2 divided by 7 minus 2. That is going to give us positive 2 by 5. Alright, now the formula to figure out these questions is basically tan theta is equal to m2 minus m1 divided by 1 plus m2 m1. So if I take m2 as CB, let's say this is m2 and this is m1, that's going to become 2 by 5 minus 2 by 5 divided by 1 plus 2 by 5 into negative 2 by 5. Sorry if this is getting messy. I'm going to move it to the other side. And that's going to leave us with 20 over 21. Now, tan theta is equal to 20 by 21. You need to understand one thing, that this theta over here is going to give you the acute angle. But what you need is an obtuse angle. So you'll have to subtract whatever answer this gives you from 180. So that will be, because this is in radians, we'll subtract it from pi because pi is equal to 180. So pi minus the tan inverse of 20 over 21, that is going to leave us with 2.380. I hope this makes sense. I'm just going to move this over here. Alright, now moving on to this part, it says the chord AB divides the circle into two segments. Find the area of the larger segment. Let's see what the two segments are. They're saying that this AB is dividing the circle into two. So this is one segment and this is the larger segment that they're referring to in this question. So they're basically telling you to find out the area of this segment. Now you can see that I can divide this area into two things. One, a triangle, and the other one is a sector, right? So first of all, I can figure out the area of a triangle, the area of the triangle, which is this triangle. Now, you can use multiple formulas to figure this out. You can use this formula that I've written down over here. You can also use area of triangle is equal to 1 over 2 base into height, which I think is going to be easier in this case. Um, Actually, it's not. Um, yeah, I think actually it's more feasible in this case to use this formula because we know that the height is going to be 2 and the base over here is going to be 10. How do I know that? I'm going to know that because over here the y coordinate is -2 and over here it's -4. Subtracting them will give me 2, and similarly the x coordinate over here is 12 and the x coordinate over here is 2, so subtracting them will give me 10. And in case you're wondering, -2 minus -4 will not be giving you -6 over here because we're talking about distance, not actual coordinate numbers. So that is going to become 1 over 2. The base is 2 and the height is 10. Sorry, my bad. The base is 10 and the height is 2. And that's going to give me the area of triangle as 10 units. Um, By the way, it's totally feasible for you to use this formula as well, but in that case, you will have to involve a sign identity by using this angle and using the distances of this side and then this side. That's going to be more complicated because you'll have to use a distance formula in that case. It's way more complicated. That's why I used this formula. Anyways, now moving on to the area of sector. The formula for an area of a sector is 1 over 2 r square theta, where r is the radius of the sector and theta is this angle. I already have this angle, so I can just subtract it from 2 pi. 1 over 2 r in this case is something that you will have to now figure out. The r is basically going to be, let's figure out the r over here. R is basically going to be using the distance formula. That's going to be -4. It's going to be 7 minus 12 whole square plus -4 -2 whole square. This is going to give me under root 29. That's going to be under root 29 whole square into 2 pi minus the answer that we got in the previous part because we're subtracting it from this angle. That was 2.380. 2.38. That is going to give me the area of sector as 56.59. Now I'm just going to shift these things in the answer space and I'm going to add these two values that I got. So one was 10 and the other one was 56.59. That makes it 66.59 units. All right, moving on to question number 9. It says the equation of a curve is such that this is equal to this, and it is given that the curve has a stationary point at this. Find the expression for dy by dx. Now, you have the double derivative given to you. You need to understand one thing, that when you go from y to dy by dx, you differentiate. And then when you go from d square y to dx square, you differentiate once again. But in this case, we're going from here to here, so you're going to be integrating it. Um, If I try to integrate it, this is going to be -24 x -3. This is going to become -24. I'm going to reduce, I'm going to add 1 to the power. That's going to be -2. And I'm going to divide the power downwards. That's going to be -2. The one, negative cancels out. That leaves us with 12 over x squared. So dy by dx is equal to 12 over x squared plus c. Now, you know that it has a stationary point at -2, 19. But you know that at a stationary point, dy by dx is going to be equal to 0. So you're not going to use 19 as the y coordinate. You're going to use y as the y coordinate. That's going to be 0 is equal to 12 over 2. 2 from negative 2 from here. Negative 2 whole square plus c. So c is going to be equal to negative 3. And that is going to give you dy by dx as 12 over x squared minus 3. Alright, moving on to part B, it says find the x coordinate of the other stationary point of the curve and determine the nature of this stationary point. Now, basically, this is asking you to solve this equation by putting it equal to 0 because at the other stationary point, dy by dx is supposed to be 0. Equal to 3. 3x squared is going to be equal to 12, x squared is going to be equal to 4, and x is then going to be equal to plus minus 2. And in this case, we're going to take it positive 2 because we only want one other stationary point. So I'm now going to plug this in into my original equation that was 24 over x cubed, negative 24 over x cubed, and that is going to become negative 24 over 2 cubed, that's going to become negative 3, and negative number means that it is a maximum point, and a positive number means that it's a minimum point. Now it says find the equation of the curve. As I said, now they're telling us to go from dy by dx to y. So again, I'm going to integrate this expression once again. The expression that I got was dy by dx is equal to 12 over x cubed, x squared, my bad, x squared minus 3. I'm going to integrate this expression. That gives me 12 x to the power negative 2. The 3 just vanishes. I am going to add 1 to the power, that becomes negative 1, divided by the power, that's negative 1. That becomes negative 12 over x minus, actually, my bad, the 3 does not vanish, it becomes negative 3x. Negative 3x. Because we've already used c as a variable over here, I'll use another variable, let's say d over here. That's going to be equal to y. Now, over here, I can use the coordinate that is given to us in the question, that is negative 2 comma 19. That's going to become negative 12 over negative 2 minus 3 negative 2 plus d is equal to 19, and d is going to be equal to 7. So the final equation comes out to be negative 12 over x minus 3x plus 7. Alright, now the question says find the equation of the normal to the curve at the point normal to the curve. At the point where dy by dx is equal to this and x is positive, express your answer in this form. Alright, the expression that we found for dy by dx was 12 over x squared minus 3. We're going to put this equal to negative 9 over 4. That becomes 12 over x squared is equal to 3 over 4. And 3x squared is equal to 48. X squared is equal to 16, so x is equal to 4. Now, if I use the equation of curve that we found in this part, I just plug in 4, negative 3 into 4 plus 7. That's going to leave me with y is equal to negative 8, and this gives me a coordinate 4 comma negative 8. I know that the gradient at this point is negative 9 over 4, but for the normal, it's going to be a negative reciprocal. That makes the gradient 4 by 9, because I'm going to be dividing this expression by negative 1. Now I have the m that is 4 by 9. I also have the coordinate that is 4 comma negative 8. I can use my equation, use the general form of an equation. Y minus y1 is equal to m into x minus x1, and input these values to get a equation, and that's going to leave me with 9y plus 72 is equal to 4x minus 16. That's 4x minus 9y minus 88 is equal to 0. Now moving on to question number 10, it says the first, second, and third terms of an arithmetic progression are 4k, k squared, and 8k respectively, where k is a non-zero constant. Find the value of k. Alright, first of all, you need to understand that the difference between this and this will be equal to the difference between this and this. So I can say that k squared minus 4k is equal to 8k minus k squared. That is going to give me 2 square is equal to 12k. That is going to be uh, k is equal to 6. As simple as that. The next part says find the sum of the first 20 terms of the progression. So first of all, I'll just plug in 6 into all of these values. This gives us 24, 36, 48. This means that the difference is 12. Uh, in order to figure out the sum of the first 20 terms, I'll just use a simple formula. This is, by the way, also given in your formula sheet that is provided to you in your exam. And that is gonna end up with 2760. Okay, now part B says the fourth and sixth terms of a geometric progression. So they're talking about something new now. Are 36 and 6 respectively. The common ratio of the progression is positive. Find the sum to infinity of the progression and give your answer in this form. Alright, first of all, you know that the fourth term is 36 and the sixth term is 6. You need to understand one thing, that I'll make a formula over here, that is u6 is equal to u4 into r squared. You need to remember that this term and this term must be adding up to this term over here. This is a trick that I use to solve these questions. Anyways, so I know that u6 is 6, u4 is 36 into r squared. So r is going to be 1 over 6, r squared is going to be 1 over 6, and r is going to be 1 over 6 under root. The formula for sum to infinity is u1 over 1 minus r. Uh, and for that, we'll have to figure out u1. So u4 is equal to u1 into r cube. Again, you can see that 3 and 1 are adding up to 4. This is going to become u4 is something that we know, which is 36, and r cube is something that I can find out. This is going to give me 529. Now I can input it into this formula. 529 over 1 minus under root 1 over 6, and that is going to leave us with, actually this is the form in which they wanted the answer, so you can just leave it here. Alright, now moving on to question number 11. It says express x squared plus 4x plus 2 in this form, where a and so this is basically completed square form. So again, for completed square, you're just gonna divide the coefficient of x by 2. That becomes x plus 2 whole square. You're gonna put the negative square of 2 outside. That's negative 4 plus 2. So that's gonna end up with x plus 2 whole square minus 2. The next question says, this is f of x, this is g of x. Find an expression for f inverse of x. So first of all, I'm gonna rewrite the completed square form from the previous part. I know that f of x is going to be equal to y, so I'm just gonna replace f of x with y. Now, the first step in this is that I am going to replace the x's with y and the y's with x. So that's going to be x is equal to y plus 2 whole square minus 2. Now I'm going to try and make y the subject of the formula. That's going to be x plus 2 is equal to y plus 2 whole square. I'm going to put a square root sign, a square root sign. This is going to become y plus 2 is equal to under root x plus 2. That's going to leave us with under root x plus 2 minus 2. Now, you do realize that there is a plus and a minus sign. Whenever your domain has a less than sign, it's going to be, whenever it's a less than sign, it is going to be a negative in your inverse. And whenever it's a greater than sign, it's going to be a positive. This is a rule that you need to know. So therefore, you're going to put a negative sign with this, x plus 2, negative 2. And then you can replace your y with f inverse of x. There you have it. All right, the next question says find an expression for f g of f inverse of x. So first of all, you need to understand that this is an inverse, but it is an inverse of a composite function. A composite function is basically a function within a function, and you can see that over here f is input inside g. So first of all, I'm gonna find an expression for g of f of x. The expression for g of x is negative x, negative 4. And for f of x, it is x squared plus 4x plus 2. And the completed square form was x plus 2 whole square minus 2. So basically, I'm going to put a bracket around x, negative 4. Uh, I'm basically following this format in case you are wondering. And inside this x, I'm going to place f of x. This. Now, I can simply start expanding this. This gives me an expression for g of f of x. Now I basically need to figure out the inverse of this expression. So I can say negative x plus 2 whole square minus 2 is equal to y. Again, I'll replace x with y and y with x. I'll make y the subject of the formula now. That is going to be y plus 2 whole square under root is going to be equal to negative x negative 2 under root. Y plus 2 is going to be equal to negative x negative 2, and that's going to be y is equal to negative x negative 2 negative 2. Alright, now over here you will see that there will be a confusion about whether you should place the positive sign or the negative sign. So basically the rule basically says that you are going to follow the domain of the input function. The input function is f of x, and the domain of f of x was negative, was less than, my bad, was less than. And when I told you that whenever it's in less than domain, it's going to be a negative sign. Negative x, negative 2. And this is pretty much your final answer. And this also brings us to the end of this video. I hope it was helpful for you and feel free to ask any questions down in the comments.